The words hit me before the sterile, antiseptic smell of the clinic did. They were whispered, but they sliced through the quiet hallway like a scalpel. The $3 million inheritance is ours, Jessica. It has to be. I froze. My hand, already reaching for the handle of the endocrinologist's office, stopped cold. That voice, I knew that voice better than I knew my own heartbeat. It was sweet, like honey. And I was just beginning to realize, just as sticky and suffocating. She's 72, for God's sake, the voice continued, a laugh bubbling underneath the words. She's too old to spend that kind of money. It's just wasting away. $3 million, sitting in that dusty old house with a woman who barely leaves it. My blood went cold, then hot, then cold again, a painful, violent tide in my veins. I leaned my head against the cool, painted cinder-block wall, my osteoporosis checkup forgotten. This was Chloe, my daughter-in-law, the wife of my golden boy, my son David. David is completely on board, Chloe said, and that was the blow that shattered my ribs and stopped my breath. He says his mom is never going to change the will anyway. She's too attached to him to ever leave it to Amelia. Amelia, my daughter, my quiet, estranged daughter. That bitter old sister of his doesn't even visit anymore, Chloe laughed, a light, tinkling sound that now seemed monstrous. We are her only real family. The plan is simple. We're going to be more insistent. David is going to start suggesting, gently, that Evelyn should organize her affairs while she's still lucid. Lucid. She was painting me as senile. They were painting me as an obstacle. A dragon, as she put it, sitting on a treasure that was rightfully theirs. What is she going to do with $3 million? Chloe's voice was dismissive, final. Buy more cardigans? More tea? It's ridiculous. We could use that money to live, to give our future children a real life. Our children. Chloe was 3 months pregnant, my first grandchild, and they were already counting the money from my grave to raise them. Mrs. Reed. Evelyn Reed? The nurse's voice startled me. I looked up, my vision blurred. Yes, I managed to say, my own voice sounding strange and thin. That's me. I rose on shaky legs and walked into the office, but I heard nothing, Dr. Finch told me. His words about bone density and calcium levels were a meaningless drone. The only thing I could hear was the echo of that conversation. David is completely on board. I drove home on autopilot, my hands, wrinkled and spotted, gripping the steering wheel. This was Boston. I had lived in this house for 45 years. I had raised 2 children in it. I had mourned my husband, Robert, in it. I had worked for 40 years as a head librarian, a woman of books, of quiet, of order. I had saved, Robert had saved. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. And we had one simple goal, to make sure our children were secure. And now, my son, the boy I had sacrificed everything for, saw me as a dragon to be slain. When I got home, I sat in my favorite armchair, the one by the window, and I waited. The house was silent. The phone rang at 5:30 p.m., just as it always did. "Hi, Mom." David's voice, warm and familiar, came through the line. "How was the doc? Everything okay?" The lie was so easy for him. The concern in his voice was a perfect performance. "It was fine, dear," I said, my voice as steady as I could make it. "Just the usual." "That's good. That's great." A pause. I could almost hear Chloe coaching him. "Hey, listen, I was thinking," and Chloe agrees. "Maybe we should sit down soon. Just to talk about getting your important papers organized, just to make sure everything is in order, for your own peace of mind." There it was, the exact script, the final, devastating confirmation. The son I had raised was gone. In his place was a stranger, a con man, a wolf waiting for me to die. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my silent kitchen, a cup of tea growing cold in my hands, and I did what I had done my entire life. I read. Except this time, I wasn't reading Jane Austen. I was rereading the last 5 years of my life. I was no longer the naive woman I had been that morning. Chloe's words had been a brutal, clarifying solvent, dissolving the soft, foggy watercolor of my life and revealing the sharp, ugly ink lines beneath. I remembered now, all the little things. The last time Amelia, my daughter, had been for dinner, Chloe, smiling her sweet, poisonous smile, had asked, "Amelia, darling, still just painting? It must be so hard to make a living from a hobby." Amelia, a quiet, brilliant art historian, had shrunk under the casual cruelty. I'd thought she was being too sensitive. I remembered how, slowly, Amelia's calls had become less frequent. Her visits had trickled to a halt. I had blamed her, thought she was too busy, too distant. I never saw the hand on her back, gently, insistently, pushing her out the door. Chloe, of course, systematically isolating me, ensuring David was the only child left in my orbit. The devoted son, the sole heir. I got up and walked through my house. I touched the piano, its keys yellowed with age, the one Amelia had practiced on for hours. Chloe had suggested we sell it. "It takes up so much space, Evelyn. Think of the room you'd have." I thought of the sacrifices. After Robert died, I didn't just work. I worked double. I was the head librarian by day, and by night I did archival work for the university, my eyes burning under the lamplight. I did it to pay for David's prestigious MBA. I sold my good car and drove a rusted-out Subaru for 10 years to afford his books, his tuition, his study abroad trips. I had given up my own dreams of traveling, of seeing the world, to make sure he could. And now, he and his wife were waiting for me to die so they could spend the fruits of that sacrifice. The next morning, I cooked. I cooked David's favorite meal: roast chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, green beans with almonds. The meal I made for his birthday, the meal I made when he was sick, the meal I made when he was heartbroken. I had poured so much love into that single recipe, it was a part of my soul. They arrived at noon, Chloe resplendent in a new dress that probably cost more than my monthly utility bills. For someone who supposedly can't pay their mortgage, I thought, she dresses like a queen. David hugged me, and for a second, I let myself feel it, the familiar comfort of my son, my boy. But then I saw him look over my shoulder at Chloe, a quick, nervous glance that said, "Stick to the plan." The illusion shattered. We ate. Chloe was lavish with her praise. "Evelyn, this is divine. You are an amazing cook. It's such a shame you only cook for yourself most of the time." A subtle knife, reminding me of my loneliness. David was light, breezy. He asked about my health, my garden, but his eyes were impatient. Finally, after dessert, Chloe placed her hand on mine. Her skin was warm, her nails perfect. "Evelyn," she began, her voice a soft purr. "David and we've been talking. And we're worried about you, all alone here, with so many financial responsibilities." "It must be so stressful," David chimed in, "managing all those accounts and investments by yourself. We've been thinking, maybe it would be a good idea to set some things up. You know, just so. If anything were to happen, everything would be organized. A power of attorney, that kind of thing. For your peace of mind." My peace of mind. As if the problem was my tranquility, and not their boundless, suffocating greed. "And," Chloe added, that sweet smile now looking like a predator's baring of teeth, "we think you should consider moving. Something smaller. This house is it's too much for one person. We could help you find a lovely, manageable condo." There it was. They wanted the house. They wanted to liquidate my life, turn my memories into cash they could control. I looked at them, sitting at my table, eating my food, planning my obsolescence. And in that moment, the grief that had frozen my heart turned into something else. It turned to ice. A cold, clear, Arctic calm. "I'll think about it," I said, my voice sounding weak. David smiled, relief washing over his face. "That's all we ask, Mom. We just want what's best for you." After they left, I sat in my living room and I cried. I cried for the son I thought I had. I cried for the years of sacrifice that meant nothing. I cried for the family I had lost. But when the tears finally stopped, something else had taken their place. A cold, clear, and unbending resolution. If they wanted to play this game, I could play it too. And I was, after all, a librarian. I knew how to do my research. On Monday morning, I did not call my regular financial advisor. I called Harold Harrison. Harold had been Robert's lawyer, a razor-sharp man of 75 who I knew had zero tolerance for fools. "Evelyn," he said, his voice gravelly, as I sat in his wood-paneled office. "You look different. You look angry." "Harold," I said, my voice steady, "I need to revoke my current will, and I need to do it in a way that is utterly, completely, and legally unassailable." His eyebrows raised. "May I ask what precipitated this shift?" I told him everything. Every word I'd overheard, every manipulation I now saw, every red flag I had ignored. He listened, his fingers steepled, his expression growing darker. "Evelyn," he said when I finished, "what you are describing is emotional and financial elder abuse. It is, unfortunately, far more common than you think, and it is disgustingly effective. What are my options?" Harold leaned back. "First, we revoke the will. We create a new one. Second, we set up safeguards. We need to prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you are of sound mind." He paused. "And third, we could consider some more creative strategies." "What kind of strategies?" "Well," he said, a slow, dangerous smile spreading on his face, "if you truly want to teach them a lesson, there are legal ways to give them exactly what they deserve. But I need you to be absolutely sure." I thought of Chloe's laugh. I thought of David's easy lies. I thought of my daughter, Amelia, driven away by their cruelty. "I have never," I said, "been more sure of anything in my life." For the next 2 hours, we built the trap. The new will was simple. Everything to Amelia, the house, the investments, the $3 million. To David, my son, I would leave exactly $1, the legal minimum, so he could never claim he was accidentally forgotten. But that was just the appetizer. "Harold," I said, "there's one more thing. I need to reconnect with Amelia, and I need to do it without them knowing." That night, I called my daughter. Her voice was hesitant, surprised. "Mom, is everything okay?" "Amelia, my dear," I said, my voice breaking for the first time. "I need to see you. I have been a blind, old fool, and I need to explain." We met at a small coffee shop across town. She was thin, her eyes guarded. She looked so much like her father. "Mom, I'm so glad you called," she said, but her hands were clenched. "Amelia," I began, and I told her everything. The overheard conversation, David's complicity, the years of subtle, poisonous manipulation that I had finally seen. As I spoke, I watched the guarded look in her eyes melt, replaced by tears. "Mom, I knew it," she whispered. "Every time I came home, she found a way to make me feel small, to make me feel like an intruder. And David, he just let her, I thought. I thought you chose them over me, so I just stopped coming. It hurt less to stay away." My heart broke. My own daughter, pulling away to protect herself from a pain I had allowed. "Amelia," I said, taking her hand, "I have changed my will. Everything is going to you." Her eyes widened. "Mom, no, you can't. Not just out of anger. He's still your son." "This isn't about anger, my love," I said, my voice firm. "It's about justice. But more than that, I need your help. Harold and we're building a case. And I need you to be strong." I explained the rest of the plan. She listened, her shock turning into a slow, grim admiration. "Mom," she said, "are you sure you want to do this?" "They think I'm a senile old woman," I said. "They are about to find out what a librarian with a $3 million budget and a score to settle looks like." Over the next few days, I became an actress. I was Meryl Streep in a cardigan. First, I transferred a significant portion of my liquid assets into a new trust, one that only Amelia and Harold knew about. This would be her war chest, immediately available, no matter what. Second, I documented everything. Every call from David. "Mom, just checking in. Have you thought more about those lovely condos?" Every text from Chloe. Evelyn, I'm so proud of you for taking these hard steps. We're just trying to protect you. Harold had taught me how to record my own phone calls, which was perfectly legal in my state. I had a growing library of their greed. I have to go to the hospital, I murmured. The drive was, in a word, illuminating. While David drove, his knuckles white, Chloe, in the passenger seat, muttered. I heard snippets. So inconvenient. Just as we were making progress. I'd hope this doesn't delay everything. My potential heart attack was a scheduling conflict. At the hospital, Dr. Finch, an old friend of Harold's, played his part with gravitas. Evelyn, at your age, any chest pain must be taken seriously. We're keeping you overnight for observation. Is it serious? David asked, and for a moment I saw a flash of real fear in his eyes. It was almost enough to make me stop. Almost. They gave me a private room. Harold had, with my explicit consent, arranged for a high-fidelity audio recorder to be placed in the room. Once I was sedated and asleep, David and Chloe sat in the chairs by the window. They waited, and then, when they thought I was unconscious, the real conversation began. Do you think this will delay the plan? Chloe whispered. I don't know, David replied, his voice low and worried. But maybe this is a sign that we need to speed things up. What do you mean? I mean, if she's starting to have health problems, we need to get that power of attorney signed. Before she gets worse. You're right, Chloe agreed. If she ends up needing long-term care, that $3 million could disappear in medical bills. It's our money, David. Our baby's future. My son, worried not about my health, but about his inheritance. And once we have power of attorney, David continued, we can manage her finances, make sure the money is protected. Protected. That word again. Should we talk to a lawyer about the will? Chloe asked. We have to be careful, David said. We don't want it to look like we're pressuring her, especially if Amelia decides to cause trouble. Amelia? Chloe scoffed. She's irrelevant. She doesn't even visit. Any judge will see that we are the devoted children. Still, David said, we should document everything, every visit, every time she seems confused, just to be sure. Document my confusion. They were planning to build a case against my sanity. As I lay there, feigning sleep, I felt a coldness so profound it burned. The son I had raised was gone, the man sitting in that chair was a stranger, and I would treat him as such. When they left, promising to return in the morning, I lay awake, smiling in the dark. They had given me everything I needed. A week later, I met with Harold, Amelia, and Dr. Finch. The hospital recording is good, Harold said, but it's not definitive. They could argue it was hypothetical. We need more. I agree, I said. They think I'm a confused old woman. They think I'm frail. It's time we used that. The plan was audacious. It was risky. And it was perfect. Evelyn, Dr. Finch said, if we do this, there is no turning back. The psychological impact. Doctor, I interrupted. The psychological impact of hearing my own son plot to steal my money while I lay in a hospital bed has already occurred. Let's proceed. On Tuesday, at 6 a.m., Dr. Finch made the call. A massive, unsurvivable coronary. Evelyn Reed, 72, was dead. At 6:15 a.m., Amelia received the devastating news. At 7 a.m., Amelia, playing her part with heartbreaking sobs, called David. I was, at that moment, very much alive, sitting in Harold's guest house, drinking tea and watching a live feed from the security cameras we had installed in my home. It was, after all, still my property. He's crying, Amelia texted me. Rebecca is comforting him. They're on their way to the hospital. At 9 a.m., they arrived at my house. To pick up some personal items for the funeral, David had told Amelia. I watched on the monitor. They didn't cry. They didn't hold each other and reminisce. Chloe walked directly into my study. Where does she keep the financial files? She snapped. I don't know, David said, his voice thick, but not with grief. With anticipation. Check the desk. I'll check the safe behind the painting. I watched them. For 2 hours, I watched my son and his pregnant wife ransack my home. They weren't looking for photos. They were hunting for assets. I watched Chloe walk into my bedroom. I watched her open my jewelry box. I watched her, clear as day, slip my mother's pearl necklace into her pocket. "She won't be needing these," she muttered. "Find the will?" David called from the study. "No, we have to call her lawyer. The sooner the better." That afternoon, from the comfort of Harold's house, I listened to the recording of David's call with the funeral home. His voice was a masterpiece of performative grief. "Yes, my mother. Passed this morning. I'd like to arrange something simple. She would have wanted something modest. A pine box. A pine box. My husband and I had paid for a top-of-the-line burial plan in cash 20 years ago. But David, it seemed, was already trying to cut corners, save a little extra for himself. On Thursday morning, they had their appointment, a 9:30 a.m. Harold's office. I was in the adjacent room, watching through a one-way mirror, a detail I'd insisted on. Amelia was already there, dressed in black, her face pale and composed. David and Chloe entered, their faces set in masks of appropriate sorrow. "Michael, Rebecca," Harold said, his voice somber. "Please, sit. I am so sorry for your loss." For 15 minutes, he explained the procedures. David nodded. Chloe checked her watch. Finally, Harold opened the file. "Michael," he said, "I must inform you, your mother revised her will a few weeks ago." David sat up. "Revised? What do you mean?" "It means," Harold said, "she made some significant changes." He put on his glasses. "According in the current will of Evelyn Reed, dated 2 weeks ago. She leaves the entirety of her estate, including the house, the investments, and all bank accounts, to her daughter, Amelia Reed." The silence was total. David's mouth opened and closed. Chloe's face went from pale to a mottled, furious red. The whole inheritance?" David whispered. "To you, David," Harold continued. "She leaves the sum of $1. "That's impossible," Chloe exploded, jumping to her feet. "She was senile. She was losing her mind. We can prove it. This is undue influence," she shrieked, pointing at Amelia. "On the contrary," Harold said calmly. "When your mother made these changes, she underwent a full mental capacity evaluation, administered by Dr. Finch. She passed with perfect marks. As for influence, your mother left a letter." He opened a sealed envelope. "To my son, David. For years, I believed I had raised a man of character. I recently discovered I was wrong. Love cannot coexist with greed, and you have chosen greed. I hope the $1 I leave you serves as a reminder of the value you placed on a mother who loved you." "This won't stand," Rebecca screamed, tears of rage in her eyes. "We will fight this. We will take this to court. We will prove she was incompetent." "Oh, I don't think you will," a new voice said. The door connecting the 2 rooms opened. I walked in. If the silence before was profound, this was the silence of the grave. Rebecca made a small, strangled sound. "David." David just stared, his face a mask of waxy, abject terror. "Mom?" he whispered. "But you're dead?" I asked, taking the empty chair next to Harold. Exactly as I asked Dr. Finch to say. "Please, sit down. We have so much to talk about." This is a trick," Chloe stammered, backing away. A cruel joke." "Yes," I said, my voice as calm and cold as the ice in my veins. "It was a trick, because I needed to be absolutely sure who you were before I made my final decisions. And in the 24 hours since my death, you have shown me." "Mom," David pleaded, his voice cracking. I don't understand." "Let me help you," I said. I nodded to Harold. He pressed a button on his desk. First, the audio from the clinic hallway. Chloe's voice filled the room. $3 million wasted on an old lady. Chloe slumped into her chair. David looked at her, his face a mask of dawning horror. "But you were worried about me," I said to David. "So let's listen to your concern from the hospital." I played the next track, David's own voice. If she's starting to have health problems, we need to speed things up. Document her confusion. David went white. Mom, I was just… And then, Harold said, there is the matter of yesterday. He turned on the monitor. The video feed from my house, 9:15 a.m. Chloe, in my bedroom, pocketing my mother's pearls. David, in my study, frantically searching my desk. No, no. David was shaking his head. And finally, I said, my favorite. I played the call to the funeral home. David's grieving voice. Something simple. A pine box. David looked at me, his eyes wide with a terror that had nothing to do with ghosts. He was finally seeing me. You set us up, Chloe shrieked, finding her voice. Yes, I said. I did. You came into my home, ate my food, and planned to have me declared incompetent so you could steal my money. You thought I was a senile old woman, a dusty book on a high shelf. You forgot. Librarians know everything. We know how to research, we know how to cross-reference, and we know how to protect our assets. Harold cleared his throat. What you have attempted, he said, constitutes conspiracy to commit fraud against an elder. We have, as you can see, a rather comprehensive file, the recordings, the video, the medical testimony from Dr. Finch. Are you pressing charges? David whispered, his face streaked with real tears now. I looked at my son, the boy I had loved, the man he had become, and I felt nothing. Just a vast, empty space where my heart used to be. No, I said, I am not. You are. You are not worth the paperwork. The relief on their faces was immediate, and just as quickly, I crushed it. But you will not receive a single penny. Not now, not ever. The will stands. Amelia gets everything. You, I said, looking at David. Get your $1. And you, I said to Chloe, get to explain to your creditors and your new baby how your brilliant plan to steal from a senile old woman left you with nothing. Mom, David begged, lunging forward. Mom, please, we can fix this. I love you. I love you. I stood up, walking to the door where Amelia was waiting. No, David, I said, pausing but not turning around. You loved the idea of me, and you loved the idea of my money. You will have to learn to live with the reality of both. I walked out of that office, Amelia's hand in mine, and I did not look back. It was never about the money. It was about the truth. Greed is a poison, but it's a slow one. Betrayal is a knife, and it is fast. I had to show them. You cannot bury someone who is not yet dead. I was 72, I was in perfect health, and I had $1 million inheritance, my own. I looked at Amelia as we stepped into the bright, cold Boston sunlight. Well, my dear, I said, taking her arm. I've always wanted to see Paris in the spring, and I am, it seems, finally free.